Very good morning to all. Today's topic is on Picorna viruses. The family Picornaviridae is one of the largest families of the viruses. It includes a larger number of very small RNA viruses. Pico meaning small, and RNA stands for the genetic makeup, which is made up of RNA. In the family of Picornaviridae, it includes two most important genera, that is the enterovirus and rhinovirus. As the name tells, enterovirus, that means the virus enters through the fecal-oral route, which is the most common route of transmission, and then it sets up an infection in the gastrointestinal tract. Rhino means it stands for the nose. So rhinoviruses are the most common viruses which are known to cause common cold. This is a picture which you can see. It's a case of polio. So poliovirus is the most important one, which belongs to the genus Enteroviruses. Polio cases are not very commonly seen these days because of the vaccines which are available, and also because of the good hygiene that has been maintained among the individuals. As already told to you, Picorna viruses, Pico meaning small, it is nothing but the RNA viruses. They are all non-enveloped. The family Picornaviridae has 6 genera, of which enterovirus and rhinovirus is the most important for us. The enterovirus again has many species under it, and also there are various serotypes which are known to cause the different diseases. This table shows us the six different genera of Picornaviridae, the different species and the diseases caused by them. The genus Enterovirus is made up of, currently there are 96 serotypes. So there are many species under them. The first one is the poliovirus, which has 3 important serotypes, that is poliovirus type 1, type 2 and type 3. And the disease which is caused by all 3 serotypes is polio. The second species is known as the Coxsackie virus, which is again divided into 2 types, Coxsackie A and Coxsackie B. Again there are different serotypes among A and B which are known to cause the different kind of infections, which I will be telling you later on. Another species is the Echovirus. There are 34 serotypes designated by the numericals 1 to 34, and they are known to cause meningitis and gastroenteritis. The remaining of the serotypes, they are just given numbers from 68 to 71. That is just known as enterovirus 68 to 71. And different numbers and different serotypes cause different infections. Coming to the rhinovirus, there is only one species, the rhinovirus, which is known to cause common cold. The most important among all of them is the poliovirus. So we will be dealing with it in detail. We need to know the morphology, the pathogenesis, the clinical manifestations, how to make a laboratory diagnosis, as well as the prophylaxis. Coming to the morphology of the polio virus. The size of the poliovirus, it measures only 27 to 30 nanometer in size. These are spherical particles. The virion is composed of 60 subunits, and each consisting of 4 viral proteins, which is designated by viral protein 1, 2, 3 and 4. As already told to you, there are 3 serotypes of the poliovirus, type 1, type 2 and type 3. Among the viral proteins, the viral protein VP1 contains the major antigenic site for combination with the type-specific neutralizing antibodies. As the name itself tells you, the big coronaviruses, the viral genome is a single-stranded positive sense RNA. Coming to the antigenic structure of poliovirus. There are two antigens. Antigen C, which stands for the capsid, and the antigen D, which is the dense particle of the poliovirus. The C antigen, it is just empty, it is not infectious, and it is very less specific. In contrast to that, the D antigen is more specific, and it is the one which produces the protective antibodies. So coming to the three different serotypes of the polioviruses, they are given different names. The polio 1 is known as Brunhilde and Mahoney strains. These are the ones which are most commonly responsible for causing the epidemics of polio. Whereas polio 2 is known as Lansing and MEFI strains, which is commonly known to cause endemics. And polio 2 is the one which has been completely eradicated from the globe. Polio 3, it's known as Lyon and Socket strains, and these are very uncommon strains which are also known to cause epidemic outbreaks. Coming to the condition in per se, poliomyelitis. Polios means grey. Myelitis stands for the inflammation of the myelin sheath. So poliomyelitis is an acute viral disease which is caused by the poliovirus. A polio vaccine is the medicine that is given to prevent polio. What happens is in polio is it causes paralysis of the muscles that are affected, and few of the infected individuals may die because of respiratory paralysis. Coming to the pathogenesis of polio. The source of infection is always the infected individual who is excreting the poliovirus in his or her stool sample, and they act as a major reservoir of infection. The mode of transmission, it is most commonly through the feco-oral route, and therefore they fall under the genera of enterovirus. It is primarily by the feco-oral route, and the infection sets in by ingestion of contaminated food and water. Sometimes also by coming in contact with the throat secretions of the infected individuals, an infection can also set in. The polio infections are commonly seen in the children and also in areas where there is poor sanitation, low socioeconomic status, and also crowded living conditions facilitate the transmission of the infection. In the pathogenesis, there are four important phases as to how the infection sets in. It is divided into the elementary phase, lymphatic phase, viremic stage, and the neurologic phase. So what happens once the virus enters? As already told, the polio virus is transmitted by feco-oral route on ingestion of contaminated water. The virus particles initially multiply in the nasopharynx and the gastrointestinal mucosa. The virions are very resistant to the acidity of stomach and also to the lytic activities of the protease and other enzymes which are present in the intestinal tract. So they continue to multiply in the epithelial cells of the alimentary canal and also in the tonsils and the Peyer's patches. This is known as the elementary phase. From this region, they slowly move or spread to the regional lymph nodes and they continue to multiply there. This is known as the lymphatic phase. From the regional lymph nodes, the virions or the virus particles enters into the bloodstream. This is known as primary viremia. For the first time, we are going to see the viruses in the bloodstream. This is known as the viremic phase. From the blood, then they enter into the reticuloendothelial system. Further multiplication takes place there, and there is re-entry of the virus again into the bloodstream. This is known as the secondary viremia. Once there is a secondary viremia, now the poliovirus crosses the blood-brain barrier and gains access to the brain by infecting the skeletal muscles and traveling up on the nerves to the brain, as it is also seen in the rabies virus. So basically it's going to infect the spinal cord and the brain. Now this is known as the neurologic phase. What happens here in the neurologic phase is the virus multiplies and starts destroying, in particular, the lower motor neurons. And to be more specific, it mainly affects the anterior horn cells. So what does it do there? The virus causes degeneration of the Nissl bodies. Nissl bodies are nothing but aggregated ribosomes. The degeneration leads to irreversible changes in the anterior horn cells of the spinal cord, which leads to flaccid paralysis. So this is just to brush up your knowledge of first year. The low motor neuron, this originates from the brainstem cranial nerve nuclei, the anterior horn cells of the spinal cord, and these are the ones which directly innervate the skeletal muscles. So this is the reason why we find flaccid paralysis in cases of polio. The destruction of the motor neurons leads to paralysis of the muscles which are innervated by those neurons. Please remember that paralysis is not caused because the virus infects the muscle. Basically, it causes destruction of the neurons which are innervating the skeletal muscles. So therefore, the patient ends up in flaccid type of paralysis. Coming to the clinical manifestations of polio. Polioviruses, they cause a wide spectrum of illness, particularly in the unvaccinated people. The 4 different phases or syndromes that are seen is, first of all, is the asymptomatic or the inapparent infection. Then we have what is called as the abortive polio, non-paralytic polio, and finally it is the paralytic polio. Inapparent or the asymptomatic phase, as the name itself tells you, it is just because of the viral replication, and it is particularly confined only to the oropharynx or the nasopharynx. The virus does not spread further. In few of them, it just goes unnoticed, and it is the majority of the population which observe the asymptomatic infection. Coming to the next stage, this is seen in only 4 to 8% of the population, wherein they have what is called as the abortive or minor illness, abortive poliomyelitis. They have very atypical symptoms like just fever, headache, sore throat, body weakness, vomiting, or loss of appetite, which most commonly is seen with other infections also. Then comes the stage of the non-paralytic polio. Among the 4 to 8%, only 1 to 2% goes into the next stage, that is non-paralytic polio, when along with the symptoms of the minor illness, the patient also has fever, headache, and stiffness of the neck, which is similar to aseptic meningitis. And this happens once the virus invades the central nervous system. Along with the symptoms of fever, headache, stiffness, there is also stiffness of the muscles of the neck and also the limbs. The next stage is a stage of paralytic polio, and again it is only 0.1 to 2% of the individuals who will observe this paralytic polio. So what happens here is, it is again because the virus has already invaded or causing destruction of the anterior horn cells of the lower motor neurons. So they see a classical asymmetrical flaccid paralysis with no sensory loss, which is a very typical manifestation of polio. This paralytic polio, it's a descending type of flaccid paralysis. The proximal muscles are affected more than the distal muscles. It is from the hip to the extremities. As I told, it is more commonly seen among the children, and we see a classical tripod sign, which you can see in the picture. The child, when asked to sit up from the supine position, he needs to take rest by putting both his hands behind his back. So this is known as the tripod sign. In the stage of paralytic polio itself, there is another stage which is known as bulbar poliomyelitis, which is caused due to the involvement of the cranial nerves. In particular, it is the 9th, 10th and the 12th nerves which are involved. This condition tends to be more severe with involvement of the muscles of the pharynx, vocal cords as well as the respiratory muscles. So you see the mortality which is seen in 5 to 10% of the cases of the paralytic polio. They die because of respiratory paralysis. There are many differential diagnoses for polio: Guillain-Barré syndrome, viral encephalitis, meningitis and brain tumors. Coming to the lab diagnosis of poliovirus, the specimen, appropriate specimens to be collected to make a laboratory diagnosis. Usually, clinically itself, polio is identified. Just to make a confirmation, we use the laboratory diagnosis. The specimens to be collected are blood, because there is viremia, CSF sample, because the virus enters the central nervous system, the throat swab, and also the stool sample, because the viruses are shed in the stool. Methods of diagnosis. First of all, we need to isolate the virus by using different tissue cultures. So for the poliovirus, we use a primary monkey kidney cell line with HeLa and Hep2, and we look for the cytopathic effects, which is seen in about 2 to 3 days. So what are the different changes that we see in the tissue culture is that they bring about crenation of the cells, and also there is cytoplasmic granularity. And the different serotypes can be identified by doing a neutralization test using the specific anti-sera. Serological examination is done by identifying the antibodies by neutralization test and complement fixation test. The last resort, the molecular diagnosis, the most fastest and the most confirmatory test is by doing a PCR. Coming to the management, as such, there is no specific treatment once the infection has already set in. It is basically to manage the patient symptomatically, that is by providing respiratory support and by giving a good physiotherapy to the affected muscles. So, as I say, prevention is better than cure. Prevention of polio can be done by using the vaccine. There are 2 types of vaccines, the live attenuated vaccine and the kill vaccine. We will be dealing with each of them in detail. First, coming to the kill vaccine, which is known as Salk's kill vaccine, also known as injectable polio vaccine, in short called as IPV. It is a formalin inactivated preparation including all the 3 serotypes of the poliovirus, which is grown in monkey kidney cell lines. The mode of administration of this vaccine is by intramuscular route. The doses is 3, which is given at 2 months of age, 4 months of age and at 6 months of age. Booster dose needs to be repeated at 2 years of age. As polio is more common in the children, it needs to be given as early as possible. The advantages of IPV, which is again in comparison to another vaccine, that is the oral polio vaccine. It is considered to be safer than the oral polio vaccine. There is no risk of vaccine associated poliomyelitis. This is one of the complications which is seen with the oral polio vaccine. There is no risk of VAP because it is a killed vaccine, and it can be given to immunodeficient individuals as well as to pregnant ladies. The disadvantages of the injectable polio vaccine is that it does not provide any kind of herd immunity, since it is an inactivated virus and therefore it does not multiply in the human body and therefore it is not shed in the feces, thereby not providing herd immunity, which in contrast to OPV, all these features are seen. Injectable polio vaccine, it induces more of IgG antibodies in the serum, but there is no generation of IgA antibodies in the gut. So therefore it does not provide any kind of local immunity as the poliovirus enters through the oropharynx. IPV cannot be used in epidemic outbreaks because it will be tedious as it is an injectable route, and also it does not provide any kind of community protection. It is only individual protection, and it is also very expensive. Coming to the other vaccine, which is Sabin's live attenuated vaccine, which is also known as oral polio vaccine or OPV. This vaccine is developed by plaque selection, again in the monkey kidney cell lines, which includes all the 3 serotypes of polio viruses. The mode of administration, it is available as flavored oral drops. I'm sure all of you all would have seen the polio drops. The doses for the OPV, it is given immediately at birth, 6 weeks, 10 weeks, 14 weeks and at 2 years of age. The advantages of OPV, all the disadvantages of IPV is the advantages of OPV. It induces both IgG as well as IgA, both in the gut as well as in the serum. Okay, so it provides a better immunity. It provides what is known as herd immunity because it is a live virus. Once it is consumed, it simulates that of the natural virus, so it multiplies and it is shed in the feces. So any other unvaccinated individual coming in contact with the stool sample containing the shed virus, they automatically get the immunity. It is cheaper. It is also very easy to administer, as in the child has to just open his mouth and then 2 drops of the polio drops are administered. The disadvantages of OPV is that it cannot be given in immunodeficient individuals as well as in pregnant ladies, and stringent conditions need to be maintained for storage, otherwise the efficacy of the vaccine is lost. This table shows the differences between IPV and OPV. Coming to what is the pulse polio immunization. The pulse polio immunization is a program which is followed in India. It is mass administration of the oral polio vaccine on a single day to all children aged 0 to 5 years in the country. 2 rounds of doses which are given 6 weeks apart. Usually it is the colder months of the year that is chosen, November and February. Depending on whichever is the first date, 6 weeks later the second date or the second round for administration is chosen. Please remember, it is given regardless of the previous immunization. What is the importance of PPI is that it just acts as extra doses and they do not replace the OPV doses which are received under National Immunization Schedule. India has been declared as polio free in the year 2014, month of March. There are still few countries which continue to have the polio virus, that is Pakistan, Afghanistan and Nigeria. In short, they are known as the PAN countries. In April 2016, there was a vaccine switching that had taken place from the trivalent, that is, the polio vaccines included all the three serotypes 1, 2, and 3, and later in the year 2016, it has switched over from trivalent to bivalent, that is, it includes only serogroups type 1 and type 3 because type 2 has been eradicated from all over. There is no treatment for polio, it can only be prevented. So what are the different complications of polio? It can affect the heart, causing myocarditis, causes hypertension, pulmonary edema, urinary tract infections, paralysis and also constipation. This is an initiative plan, Global Polio Eradication Initiative Plan. That was all about polio virus. Coming to the other species of enterovirus genus, that is the Coxsackie virus. The Coxsackie viruses are so named because the viruses were first isolated in Coxsackie village in New York, USA. Based on the pathological changes in suckling mice, they are divided into Coxsackie type A and Coxsackie type B viruses. So what are the changes that they produce in the suckling mice? Coxsackie A mainly produces flaccid paralysis in the mice, whereas Coxsackie B produces a spastic kind of paralysis. Here it is a generalized myositis, whereas in Coxsackie B it is more of a focal myositis. And the infections also which are caused by the two types are different. Coxsackie A mainly causes infections such as herp angina, hand, foot and mouth disease and aseptic meningitis. Whereas the infections which are caused by Coxsackie type B, it is pleurodynia, aseptic meningitis, myocarditis and also known to cause juvenile diabetes mellitus. So these are just pictorial representations of the different infections which are caused by both the viruses. You can say the herp angina. This is caused by Coxsackie A virus, and there are different serotypes which are known to cause the different infections. Coxsackie A, they have 24 serotypes, whereas Coxsackie B has only 6 serotypes. So depending on the different serotypes, they are known to cause the different infections. Coming to herp angina, this condition is characterized by sudden onset of fever, sore throat and difficulty in swallowing. On examination of the infected patient, we see that there are painful vesicular eruptions of the oral mucosa around the soft palate and the uvula, as you can see in the picture. This is a self-limiting condition. Coming to the other condition, that is the hand, foot and mouth disease. This is particularly seen in the children. What happens here is there is a vesicular exanthema, particularly caused by the Coxsackie virus type A, serotypes 5 and 16. It is characterized by symptoms of fever, cough, sore throat and a classical vesicular eruptions which are seen on the hands, feet and the oral cavity. Therefore, it is known as hand, foot and mouth disease. This is also a self-limiting condition. Coming to pleurodynia. This is caused by Coxsackie type B, serotypes 3 and 5. What happens here? There is a sudden onset of fever accompanied by muscular pain in the chest and the abdomen. As you can see in the picture, the patient is holding the region where there is severe pain. The pain is spasmodic in nature and usually lasts for about 4 days. Myocarditis, this is again a serious condition which is a life-threatening condition too, caused by Coxsackie type B, mostly seen in the newborn infants. They present with symptoms such as shortness of breath, dull or sharp chest pain along with fever. And this condition is associated with high morbidities. Apart from that, both Coxsackie A and B is also known to cause aseptic meningitis. Coming to the lab diagnosis for Coxsackie virus, the specimens to be collected is the throat swab, stool sample and the CSF sample. Again, we need to isolate the virus. We can either use a suckling mice to see which kind of virus depending on the changes that are seen in the mouse. Then we can also use the different cell lines and look for the cytopathic effects. Serological examinations can also be done, and for confirmation we use the PCR. This slide is a summary of both the polio virus as well as the Coxsackie virus. Just a word on the other species, if at all asked, the ecoviruses and the other enterovirus. The other ecoviruses, there is a full form for that. It is known as enteric cytopathogenic human orphan viruses. So therefore, in short, it is known as ecoviruses. Ecoviruses, there are 32 different serotypes which are known to cause different infections. Why they were known as orphan viruses is because earlier they were not associated with causing any kind of infection, but nowadays they are known to cause a variety of human illnesses. What are the infections which are caused by these ecoviruses? In particularly, it causes aseptic meningitis. In few of them, it also causes gastroenteritis and also certain respiratory diseases among children. Lab diagnosis, again the same samples to be collected like feces, throat swab and the CSF sample, and the cell lines that I use is a human diploid embryonic lung fibroblast and look for the different cytopathic changes. Coming to the last one, that is the enteroviruses. The enteroviruses 68, 69, 70 and 71, of which enterovirus 69 is not known to cause any disease, whereas type 68 causes pneumonia and bronchitis. Type 71 causes acute hemorrhagic conjunctivitis and also causes meningoencephalitis. Enterovirus 72 is nothing but the hepatitis A virus, which is again reclassified into the genus Hepadna virus. So when we are dealing with the hepatitis viruses, that time hepatitis A virus will be dealt in detail. Thank you.